I just thought
Cut him off.
we needed a new intro, Tony. This is Jacob Machado with the Sons of Quarantine podcast. That's a quarantine with an umlaut.
No.
Wait.
I think you were closer with the C. It's actually a Q.
Still a Q?
Yep.
I don't speak German, sorry.
Yeah, it's tough. We'll have to call Father John over for that.
Well, welcome back to Sons of Ours, Sons of Quarantine. Tony and Jacob here. We've got our very special guest, Deacon Chris Considine, soon to be Father Chris Considine. You can say hello.
Present.
Present and accounted for.
Yes.
Sorry, that's just what we say in the ordination. If they call our names, you stand up and say present. I failed the first two times.
And you hope that your voice doesn't crack.
Too soon.
So I at the intro there, I just I haven't heard our soundtrack song for a while, so I wanted to give us the experience of beginning the podcast. And I think we're recording back-to-back podcasts over here from the Spirituality Year
So
house.
what could go wrong?
And if you listen to the previous podcast where me and Tony were just talking about quarantine, we're recording this one about a half an hour after that.
Yep.
With a guest now, but we've actually decided Chris is just going to sit here because we've got a lot more stories about quarantine.
I've got endless quarantine stories.
Actually, Deacon Esteban, we will save you from that. We will.
Please don't write us another angry email.
Yeah. You heard from people, quote, that we never have a topic, quote.
We're not bitter, Esteban. We're trying to be better, okay? We not only brought a topic, but we brought a prop into the studio, which I'm super excited about.
I'm a little uncomfortable because it is made of precious metal.
Yes.
It is more valuable probably than like everything I own. And it is Deacon, soon-to-be Father, Chris Considine's chalice. Every priest or most priests get a chalice. I don't know. I'm the only non-deacon in the room, so I don't know how this works. So somebody take over for me and explain why the chalice is here, Chris.
Yeah, sure. So it's pretty cool. I felt like a kid in the candy store the other day because I broke quarantine. Don't tell Father Brady. And I went up to Boulder to pick up my chalice. Yeah, because I got it with my sister a few months ago around Thanksgiving. And I was just leaving it up in Boulder. But I realized, I got to get ordained and I got to use it to celebrate Mass because,
I'm going to be a priest.
I'm going to be a priest. Man.
It's like sub 10 days now, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep, 9 days. Who's counting?
Not me.
So I just got it and I brought it back. And I don't know, every time that I open up the box and look at it, it's kind of like the first time I ever saw it. And it just makes it real that I'm going to be a priest one day.
Yeah.
9 days from now.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, it's tradition that the chalice, the communion cup, as some people say, the priest has his own, right? Because his life is spent offering the Mass and the sacrifice of the Mass. So the chalice is a very intimate and is a very beautiful object that the priest uses every day when he celebrates the Mass. So oftentimes it has a lot of either historical significance, personal significance, tradition. Guys can get chalices from all over the world, but a lot of guys have chosen to, because there's so many beautiful chalices out there that were made, in the 1800s, 1700s, 1900s, and then honestly just kind of thrown to the wayside because someone wanted something newer or better or shinier. We have all these really beautiful chalices around the world that have been repurposed for awful things, just people just kind of using them, having them at their house. But the church, a lot of people have decided, let's restore these. Let's bring back the beauty of a priest having a significant chalice, a significant personal chalice that when he celebrates the Mass, he knows that he's celebrating the sacrifice of the Mass and he's connected to that sacrifice. And oftentimes the chalice can be a good means in a human way for us to be connected to that.
Is this a repurposed chalice then, Chris? Is this?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So when I got it, they from the chalice store, which we'll talk about in a little bit how I got it, but they said it was made roughly in the 1880s, maybe as late as 1910. So this chalice is old. It's seen a lot.
I think what strikes me here, me and Tony were talking about the one body of Christ in the last podcast, but what's striking me here is the one priesthood. That this chalice celebrated you're consecrated at Mass with who knows how many priests before.
Yeah.
And then you're going to continue that, like this one priesthood of Jesus Christ that each priest participates in. Like this is kind of a physical, tangible sign of that. And that's just super cool.
Yeah. And like the fact that like as I'm looking at this beautiful chalice, and if we peer inside the cup, we know that the blood of Christ, the same blood that was poured out when his side was pierced, the same blood that was poured out when he got a cut as a kid, the blood of Christ is consecrated. Was consecrated for hundreds of years in this chalice. That is such a beautiful reality, and that's why these holy objects, we reverence them with so much reverence. That's why we look at them, and it brings chills, honestly, to me, tears to my eyes, just to think about all the masses, to think about all the times that the Holy Spirit came down from heaven and Jesus Christ became present in this chalice, as we just have it sitting on this desk.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's incredible.
And oh man, that was part of the reason why I actually decided to go with this one, was just for that reason, because there were a few new chalices that were lined up next to it, and yeah, and I just couldn't almost deal with myself in a way of like not bringing back something that had already been so sacred. Yeah, there is gold and silver and rubies and whatever that make chalices nice. There's also the infinite worth of having God dwell within you. So that was my quote selling point for this guy. So I made a few allusions to how I got this chalice. I'm just going to go through the story in a sense.
Story time with Deacon Christopher Considine.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I've not been known for being a good storyteller, so sorry to all those listeners out there. But hey, I've heard that you can actually make podcasts go faster, so this is the time to press that button.
Yeah, you might normally go to like 1.5 or 2. You might want to go to like X3 right now,
X3.
if they let you.
Yeah. Get back to Jacob and Tony.
This will be good. I'm excited.
But so what happened was I started thinking about chalices probably for the first time when I was in Boulder. So I was a college student at CU Boulder, studying skiing and slacklining and, I don't know, minoring and frisbee throwing. It was
cool.
Dude, it was the best. Before I left to go to seminary 9 years ago, before I left, those were the 2 happiest years of my life. They were the happiest years of my life. But I knew that God wanted me to be a priest, so I left. I left because I knew he would make me happier than anything in the world. Even more so than skiing and frisbees in Boulder. But it was there that I would watch the 2 priests at the time celebrate Mass every day. And every day they would raise the chalice. And then toward the end of my time in college, they asked if I wanted to be an altar server. Honestly, priests don't need altar servers. Like, they can move a chalice from one table to the next. I think one of the major reasons why altar servers, for me, like they asked me to be an altar server, was that I'd be closer to the Eucharistic sacrifice, and I could be closer to the chalice. So that was the first time I started to think about it. Then went to seminary, a lot of years being a seminary and thinking about being a priest. And then I just started to daydream about, I'm gonna celebrate Mass.
Yeah.
I mean, it just becomes more and more real the closer you get. I mean, Tony, you're a year away from being where I am. Jacob, you're only a few years back from that. Like, one day you get to celebrate Mass. Yeah. And honestly, I just started daydreaming about it. Just replaying the scene over and over and over. Just like, take this, all of you, and drink from it. Sorry, not going to say it. I'm going to lose it. I wonder if you can like hear tears on podcasts.
Trust me, people have made fun of me. They can hear your tears.
It's old. You can hear a smile through a phone. You can hear tears through a phone. It's so.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah. I just started daydreaming about celebrating Mass. Just replay that over and over and over and over again. And then one day you wake up and you're a deacon and you're like, I need a chalice. So I have a sister, a great sister, Shannon. She's up in Manhattan, New York, safely quarantining right now. It's pretty tough up there. But she lives in Manhattan, and that's where this chalice store is, Adrian Hammer's. And And I've just always heard that this is the mythical land of gold and silver, where chalices are. So this past Thanksgiving, I went up to go see my sister, and then also had a side trip to go to Adrian Hammer's for the chalice. And, beforehand I'd looked online, just like to get an idea of things, different, I don't know, like outlines or what a chalice would look like, the different options. And I had my two favorites, but when I finally showed up, it's the coolest experience if you've never been. It's this like...
Chris, I don't think anyone's ever been.
You can't go unless you're a priest, right?
Oh yeah, that's actually pretty true. Sorry, yeah. So, so no one's ever been.
We should throw everybody off the trails. You can't find this store. It's down. It's like in Tahiti somewhere, I think. Right?
Yeah,
that's right.
I heard it was Guam.
Guam. But basically, there's no signage anywhere to find this place. You have to have called ahead beforehand, and they had to set up a time because, apparently stores that are just filled floor to ceiling with gold are, worthy of protecting.
Yeah. High risk, so to speak.
Hard to insure. So I went down this one random hallway with a small sign, then they open up a door, and you just look through for the first time, and it's floor to ceiling gold. Oh, man.
Can I ask, before we keep going in this question, why is it, if one of you wants to answer, I can, but why do we use these precious metals for a chalice? I think, Chris, you could hit this one out of the park.
Yeah, so I think, Tony referred to this earlier, of what happens with a chalice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, God literally becomes present in the world, in that location. Yeah. It's not this ethereal, like, spiritual thing. It's a real, tangible flesh and blood. Therefore, something real and tangible that's dignified should be holding it.
Yeah.
So we have gold plating the chalices, just
silver,
just to be a reflection of the dignity and the worth of what's inside.
Exactly. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the thing that is of infinite value, can't put a price tag on, is in something that is of incredible value in this world. And this sometimes is a critique of the church of, oh, why does it have such fineries and gold chalices and fine art, and couldn't we just sell it all and give it away? And in some sense I can kind of hear that, but I look at some of the great saints of the Catholic Church. I look at Mother Teresa of Calcutta. I look at St. Francis of Assisi. Mm-hmm. Incredibly simple, living, even lower poverty than, a vow of poverty even asks of. And these people who live such a worldly poverty were absolutely invested in making the liturgy full and beautiful and reverent to God. And St. Francis would say nothing is to be spared for the sacrifice and the celebration of the Mass. A man who, wore rags his entire life would not let God be held in something not precious.
Yeah.
Because that's how beautiful and important God is. I mean, even just for if you're married, are you going to give something gaudy to your spouse? Or if, Mother's Day is coming up, are you going to, are you going to give something like you pull out of the dumpster to your mother for Mother's Day? No, you're going to make something nice.
Yeah. And it goes also back to the Old Testament, right? God gave instructions for the temple. Right? The temple was wrapped in gold. Everything used at the altar, in the Holy of Holies, everything is wrapped in gold. Gold is everywhere. Why? Because it's precious to man's eyes, and it's precious in God's eyes, right? Because it's this beautiful gift. It's this beautiful representation of the amount of love and the amount of importance that God has for man. And so when we use these precious metals in the chalice, it's not like we just made this up. These have been precious for all time. That's why they say gold. You can hear all those commercials online, like invest in gold. It's the most the most standard of value. Gold, diamond, silver. These things. People are always trying to invest in them, right? Why? For some reason, they're valuable to man, right? How much more is God valuable to man? And so we should give him the best. And so it's just such a beautiful representation, and that's why it's truly a gift when we handle these precious objects. We don't just wash them in a dishwasher. Right? These are precious objects to man, precious to represent our love for God. So absolutely incredible.
And so back to your CU days. First time you thought of a chalice.
Well, we're actually at Adrian Hammer's.
Oh, we are. Sorry. Yeah. I apologize. I'm jumping the gun.
Floor to ceiling, gold.
Yeah.
Floor
even
to
better.
ceiling, gold. Yeah, thanks for that. About why we have nice chalices. And one thing that they stressed when we got in there was, yes, what does this feel like to you? What does it look like to you? But also put it on a table and stand back 20 feet, because that's how the people of God are going to see it. And as you were saying, this chalice is for God, and it's also for the people of God. It's to show the dignity of what's being held inside, and it's to show the worth of those who will be receiving from it, namely the people of God.
Yeah.
So what happens? I mean, you go in there, they give you some white gloves, and they just say, pick whatever you want. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So you're just opening up things and just like putting them all out on the table. And yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's just something that you dream about so much, about what will be the chalice that God will choose for me. I don't know. Some people joke that it's kind of like Harry Potter and like the wand chooses you.
Yeah.
It's like the chalice chooses you. So I was just going through different things, putting them out on the table, and I lined up. There were probably 20 of them out there. And I don't know. My sister was like, well, how about you pick one? Because, she didn't want to be there for 5 hours, obviously. So then what the curator did, she said, probably the first one that you pick will be the one that you want the most. So she said, okay, Mass starts in 5 minutes. Father, pick a chalice. I was like, what? And she was like, you have no time to think. Walk over there, pick one, and that's going to be your chalice. So I just walked over and I picked this one. And at the time I didn't really know why. Other than that's what I thought a chalice should look like. Because I had gone online and they had all those online ones with the 12 apostles on it and with the other scenes of the life of Christ on it. And I thought that was the one, but I didn't even think about it. When I was in the presence of this one, I just knew it was right. So then eventually I went through it and I was like, yeah, this is the one. And then I was going back on the train ride afterwards, like just elated that I had finally chosen a chalice to celebrate Mass with for the rest of my life. And I was flipping through some pictures, and I came across a picture of the parish that I grew up in Boulder, when I first started thinking about being a priest. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and was like, it's the same one. Like, it is the same, almost the exact same one. It has the same words around the top. It has the same dimensions. It has the same cup. It has the same nodes. It's almost the exact same. And after I saw that picture, I talked to the lady, and she said, "Oh, those two chalices must have been made by the same artist. They're what we call sister chalices." And it was so fitting that the Lord, when He first instilled a desire for me to be a priest, used the chalice that will be the sister to the one that I'll use when I actually become a priest.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's been the podcast. And,
Yeah.
no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, to see God's providence working at every moment of our lives, but then we have these concrete instances where you can't deny the presence of God, the presence of a creator who not only created this chalice, but created you in your heart for Him to celebrate Mass. And so at every step of the way, there are vestiges of Him. He's there. He's working. It's like, wow, it is truly right and just that He, being present physically in this chalice, was present your entire life. And then specifically when He called you to the priesthood in Boulder, He's present in a chalice. That's incredible.
You talk about the creator and the craftsman, and you guys have had Father on House. You've probably heard this before, and he's going to lower my grade for the semester when I butcher this. But Care of Wojtyła, John Paul II, talks about the etymology of the word in Polish between creator and craftsman. And I don't know which is which, but one's like Czwartka and one's like Czwarka. Like
you are dumb.
Basically the same thing. Slightly different word, but one means creator and one means craftsman. And creator is reserved, really, for God. God is the creator of all things, creates out of nothing. And then the craftsman is he who creates within the world that God has created and takes part in that mission of God. And we do that in so many ways. Married couples do that in the creation of a family. Artists do that in creation of works of art. We all do that in creation and co-creation of ourselves with our choices, choosing to be virtuous or vicious. We create ourselves. But the priest also takes part in this. So I see a beautiful kind of poetry going through of God, the creator, creating all things, and then the artist creating these two sister chalices for priests who then will take part in the one sacrifice of the Mass, which is where Christ recreated mankind. Yeah. You're a co-creator with God in that. And it's just beautiful. I had to share because I don't know, I have a point. It just seems beautiful and poetic.
Yeah, it's poetic and it's beautiful and it's personal. It's relational. Like God, we have such a skewed view in the world today that God, and not even like the stereotypical, like God is just an authority figure who gave us commandments. It's like people just have no idea how present he is in our daily lives. People have no concept of how personal he is. I mean, imagine if an author wrote billions and billions and billions and billions of stories, each one being as incredible as the next. But Christ, God, the creator, through his son, literally, like the word was spoken and light came, right? It's like God literally created billions, billions, billions of souls, and he wrote our lives, and he desired to be present in each moment. And so the Christian life, honestly, especially for us in seminary, we spend so much time trying to find our identity. Like, yes, you can be rooted in Christ. What does that mean? Where has Christ been present? That's often where we look to find our identity of Christ. And it's like God is present in every moment. I can look back on my life and I can see it in the little things. Even when I was turning away from him, I can see that he was there. But what's really beautiful is to look at our lives and be like, not only was he there, but it's come to fruition now. And that's a huge grace when we get to see that. And that's why this chalice is so powerful. And that's why we're in here bawling like a bunch of babies. Because like there is a distinct point in your life, Chris, that you remember as God was calling me to the priesthood. God was calling me to something deeper. And it revolved around a chalice. He was present there. And then there's a distinct moment in Adrian Hammer's, this mythical paradise of gold and silver, where the lady says, you have 5 minutes, almost Father, pick a chalice, and you grab it. And it's the very same chalice that you used to grab and bring to the altar at CU Boulder. Yeah, like these are concrete experiences that we can look at that strengthen our faith, that hopefully will strengthen others. Because everyone can have those if we just take the time to find them. But those moments don't just come to us if we're just always going on to the next thing, always busy. Jacob and I talked in the last podcast about quarantine being this huge grace where we could actually look at our relationship with God. We could take time because we're in this slower pace life.
Yeah, I think that things like this come all the time. But we don't see them. We're not looking for them. We're not hearing them. I had a moment over quarantine where I was in my holy hour and I was like, Lord, you're not speaking. Like, speak to me. And like evening prayer that day, I think the reading for evening prayer was like, I speak at all times and all things or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I was like, darn you. And then for the next 3 days, it was just like, I was seeing it. I was seeing moments. I was seeing moments where God is actually speaking. You know, he answered that prayer super quick. And it wasn't like this transformative, everything became super easy. Like prayer was still hard for me in quarantine. but there was that glimpse, that moment of answering it, and then to see these moments, and the chalice being the sister chalice to your chalice, that's a moment. And that's a very profound, big moment. But each person will have these beautiful, poetic, interweaving moments in their life, in the story. So, while you guys are recovering from crying over there, I'm staring at this chalice, and I don't know if you've never been up close and seen a chalice kind of in person. They're beautiful works of art, intricate, and typically have a lot of imagery and symbolism. So I just kind of want to turn, and Chris, if you can share a little bit about the symbolism of this particular chalice, and towards the priesthood and towards the Catholic life. I think that'd be awesome for the listeners to hear.
And for us.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm just looking at these pictures and like, that looks like a saint, and that looks like a saint.
It's true. Yeah. So actually, this one's a total side tangent. One of the reasons why some chalices have so many like little details, like what does that mean? It looks kind of just like a design. It's because chalices are meant to be used, so when you handle them a lot, they get scratches. So actually, ones that have lots and lots and lots and lots of designs on it hide scratches better.
And are intended for constant use.
Like, it's not a museum piece.
Wow.
It's not a museum piece. It's supposed to be used. So the most important thing on it, I think, is the image of the crucifixion that's right in the dead center on the base. Because that is the foundation of the Mass, is the sacrifice of our Lord on the cross. And there were a few chalices that didn't have a crucifix, and I don't know, internally, viscerally couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I could ever celebrate the sacrifice of the Mass without seeing an image of our Lord's sacrifice. It just didn't make sense to me. So right dead center, there's the image of the crucifixion. But a quick thing on like the kind of the structure of how chalices are. Typically, there's like 4 pieces. So there's the base, right? There's the base that's pretty wide so that it doesn't tip over. There's the cup, which is at the top of it, which holds the precious blood. Then there's the stem, which connects the base to the top, base to the cup. And then there are the nodes. So the nodes are like the little handle looking thing that's in the middle of the stem. So when you're just going up, it's like you got your base, stem, node, stem, cup. Yeah. Hopefully that helps to image it.
My eyes are closed. I can see it. Picturing the goblet of fire.
The goblet of fire.
No, sorry.
But in it, I think that's super important because I don't know if you guys talked about the 4 pillars of formation on this podcast?
We haven't. I'm sure somebody has.
Yeah, mixed and mingled. Yeah.
Okay, here and there.
Remind us.
So roughly the 4 pillars of formation are the human, the intellectual, the spiritual, and the pastoral. And those are imaged in the structure of this Gothic chalice. So the base is representative of the human pillar formation because it needs to be wide. It needs to be sturdy. Because if you have, like as a priest, you have lots of things going on in your life. If you don't have a sturdy human foundation, you're going to tip over. Like you're not going to be able to be used. You're not going to be able to have like this transmission of all the good things you've received because it's weak. It'll fall over. So you need a wide base. But then the most important thing is the cup. The thing that is closest to Jesus Christ, and that's the spiritual formation. So that's what touches the precious blood of Christ. And in our lives, our spiritual formation, our interior life, our intimacy with Christ is the most important thing. It is the closest we ever get to the Lord. So that's the cup. And in between those, what connects it is the stem. And the stem represents the intellectual life. Because
it's the ascent from the human to the spiritual, from worldly things to heavenly things.
Exactly. It's this ascent up, but it's also this descent back down from things that we've seen in the heavenly realms being then integrated into our human life. It's this connection. Mm-hmm. The interior life, the intellectual life, isn't learning facts. It's not about that. Yeah. It's about connecting the things of heaven to the things of earth. And then right smack in the middle of all of it is this node, this like, that's what you think of when you think of goblets, the protruding things that you hold on to. Typically they have rubies. I don't like rubies, so I don't have any. But that's the pastoral formation, because that's how you hand everything over to someone else, and that's what they grab. It's that node that someone holds onto, the human, the intellectual, the spiritual. That's what's passed from person to person to person to person as the faith is. So the image of a Gothic chalice is the image of a priest, and the 4 pillars of what it means to be a priest.
Wow. I will never look at a chalice the same way again.
That might be the most profound thing that's ever been said on this podcast. How's that, Deacon Estevan, for a specific topic?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
We will try to post, we'll post on the Facebook page, just kind of the podcast. We'll throw a picture of like a Gothic chalice. Maybe that'll help you to see what Deacon Chris is talking about here. But yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I got it from an unnamed priest, so it's not mine. But
yeah, there's something that's so powerful. So, I was just ordained a deacon, and my dad asked me about when I was actually at my brother's diaconate ordination in DC before quarantine hit. And, he's just like, have you thought about chalices yet? And I've spent my entire seminary career being like, I'm not that guy. Like, I can't presume. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Still to this day, I've never bought a clerical shirt. Those black shirts with the white collar. I always get them from the free pile.
The free pile is the best.
Yeah. It's not because I'm not bought into the seminary. It's just my mind. I'm thinking I've got more important things to worry about. Like, I'm trying to pursue the Sacred Heart of Christ, the priestly heart of Christ at all times. And my dad was the one that reminded me, like, hey, God said yes. The church said yes. And he's like, we got to start looking for chalices. What do you want? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I should talk to the guys that have looked. And so this podcast, I'm sitting here bawling my eyes out because it's like, holy cow, I've got to go visit Chris's sister in New York or something. Go to Adrian Hammer's.
That happens to me time and time again on the podcast, to be honest, Tony. It's like, I'll be sitting here with a guy, and I might even be going through a tough part of formation. And then the guy shares his story, shares something beautiful, just stirs my heart. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, confirmations again.
Yeah.
It's just super uncomfortable, and I don't want to do the podcast anymore because God keeps confirming my vocation through it. And it's just, tough because I don't want to let go. But I think that's a beautiful aspect, actually, of the podcast. So we hope it goes out to other people that you are inspired as well. But I mean, for Tony and I, even talking to you guys, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I don't have emotions typically.
Quarantine's brought them out of you.
Yeah, it has, and I'm ashamed of it. But my spiritual director says stop hiding them and burying them. So I've temporarily taken the keys out of my excavator, so I can no longer bury my emotions. But it's been a beautiful time, especially for Jacob and I, as we walk with you, Deacon Chris, and the other guys that are being ordained next week to the priesthood. Of that, seminary formation is not our vocation. It's our state in life currently. But we're called to the priesthood. We're pursuing the priesthood of Jesus Christ, and it's not for our sanctity. Men don't want to become diocesan priests because it's going to make them holy. Right? That vocation is called religious life. You pursue religious life for the purpose of your sanctity, because that's the mode. Like, you live in community, you live this religious vow, these vocations, this state of life for your sanctity. The diocesan priesthood is for the sanctification of others, of the people of God, of the world. And so this chalice is such a beautiful representation. My favorite part of your description was the notes, the pastoral formation of it is how we hand on what we have received. Right? That is so beautiful. And so I long for that. I'm so edified by this conversation that we've had, and I'm ashamed of it, so don't talk to me about it again. But it's so true. So I just encourage all of you, especially if there's any young men out there that listen to this, that are asked in priesthood. The priest, Fulton Sheen has this famous line, this famous book, "The priest is not his own." And that is truly a profound statement. We are ordained for the service of the people of God. Right? When the priest leans over the altar, he says, "This is my body. This is my blood, which is given up for you." Not only is he echoing the words of institution, the words of Christ, but he's renewing his priesthood in that moment every day, saying, "This is my body. This is Chris Considine. Lord, I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to all of you in the pews. My life is yours."
It's so true. Thank you, Tony. I mean, in the midst of the COVID outbreak, or
we refer to it as the Big Rona.
Big Rona 19.
Big Rona 19.
It's an Office reference for those who are listening.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Go on.
I think about like, well, what if I get it? What if I get it and it's like I die right after ordination? Like, wasn't that just a total waste of 9 years of my life to go through seminary just to die right when I finally, quote unquote, reach the goal?
Terrible return on investment for the diocese.
Seriously, our donors are going to be angry.
And unequivocally, it'd be absolutely worth it. One mass, just to celebrate one mass, would be worth my entire life. To hear confessions once, to anoint one person, would be worth absolutely everything, and even more that I wish I would have given to prepare to be a better priest. But the Lord is merciful, and he'll make up for my lackings. But I know that it will absolutely, absolutely be worth it, even if it's only for one day.
Amen.
Amen.
I don't know. I can't go on much longer, Tony.
No, that's it. I think I'll leave us because Chris has inspired me to share this. Father Ryan O'Neill, our vocation director for the Diocese of Denver, he says a prayer every day, every time before he celebrates Mass with his servers, deacons, whoever it is. And essentially the prayer says, "Lord, let us celebrate this Mass. Let us participate in this Mass as if it were our last." It's a famous,
our first
famous prayer.
and our last.
And our first and our last. So if you're listening to this, I encourage you, once Masses resume, next time you are in the presence of the sacred chalice, chalice of salvation, participate in that Mass as if it was your first and as if it was your last. Because it truly is the touchstone. It's the moment on this earth where heavens are opened up and we participate in the heavenly liturgy. How powerful is that? So
this is Jacob and Tony with Chris Considine, soon to be Father Chris Considine.
Pray for him.
Thanks for coming on. 9 days to ordination. Pray for him through. I'm excited to be up there on the altar as a server. Tony's going to be deacon. It's going to be beautiful.
It is. Yeah, and that's going to be live streamed, right, Deacon Chris?
Yes, live streamed.
So live stream, check out the Archdiocese, archden.org. I imagine they will. If not, we'll post it on the Facebook page as well for St. John Vianney. But pray for the ordinandi, pray for all those preparing to celebrate the sacrifice of the Mass.
This has been Sons of Ours with an A and From Quarantine with a Q.
Perfect.
And I finally got it. We're gonna keep sending out podcasts, so keep tuning in, and thanks for joining us today. God bless.
See ya.